Ah! 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 Does the thought of wiring up your LS conversion scare you? PSI Conversions is here to help. I'm just kidding, it's not actually an advertisement for PSI Conversions. My loyalty cannot be bought. Alright, welcome back to Death Toll Racing. Today, back on the Safari Wagon, finally. It's still a little bit of a mess in here, but we're cleaned out enough to where I can actually start doing some work on this thing and keep going on the project. So today we're going to wire up the motor. We have a new wiring harness we're going to put on. It's a standalone harness just for a Gen 5 LS motor, or LT motor technically. So let's get going. We're running a PSI harness. I got the whole system from them. Everything involved, I just ordered it all from them. It's not worth shopping it around. This way you know everything's compatible. So anyway, here's the harness. We will lay this out on the ground and figure out the best plan of attack on getting it in the car, since we are wiring this in the car. Remember, we're running a Turbo 350 manual valve body. That changes some things. So when I ordered this harness, I ordered it for a manual transmission. And then we had to buy a manual transmission computer for that LT motor. So that'll just be a Camaro computer with the TR6060. PSI gives you a mount for the computer, and this is the computer that they reprogrammed that is the Camaro computer. They sent my computer back. I didn't realize that they couldn't use that automatic computer. I figured they could just reflash it, but I don't think it's pinned out right, so it won't work. Obviously you need the electronic throttle. That's the one out of the Tahoe. Mass airflow sensor, I'm just going to use this. We're going to plug into it so we don't have to remember the wiring. I have a new one when we go to make our intake system for that. We are going to make a snorkel for it. So here we have, this is the Dakota Digital. I bought it from PSI. They just drop shipped it from Dakota Digital. But this is a speed generator. So we're going to hook to that speedometer that's on that transfer case, the NV208. This is going to tell the computer the speed that the vehicle's going. And then unfortunately, we then have to regenerate to run the speedometer, the mechanical speedometer in it. This is where it gets kind of weird. I have to run an actual motor to run the speedometer, which is cool. It gives us the ability to change tires and wheel size and stuff. We don't have to start changing out gears. We'll be able to actually program it through the computer and change the speedometer. So the speedometer will actually be driven off of this. And so this is a motor, so it taps into the electronic signal and it'll actually somehow, and we'll have to research that, it's somehow going to be tied to the computer on this thing, and that's how it's going to drive the speedometer on there. It comes with a cable and all that stuff too. Let's get going on it. Let's figure out this harness on the floor here. So to start with, we're just going to go ahead and put this on. This is the passenger side, that's the driver's side harness. These are the two injector rails. That's where I'm going to start. Plug those in and then we'll feed the rest of the motor the rest of the way. I'm trying to determine whether we want this going down or up once we get it in there. So that makes a difference in how I'm going to plug these first two in. So I know these go underneath the car, but I'm just trying to keep track of them right now, so I'm keeping them up where they go underneath the engine. I just don't want our stuff to start weaving through Okay. Oh, here it is. Thought those all seemed to be excessively long. Okay, so the cam sensor is plugged in underneath, down by the oil pan. I remember that now. I just had to follow all the wires. That. And we don't use the purge valve on the standalone system, so it's going away. So this is an ICT purge valve block-off plate. So I should have started with this harness on the passenger side fender, not on the right-hand fender. It screwed me a little bit having it over there. So anyway, we're back in business. All I did was flip it this way, and then I just had to unwind everything because everything got tangled up when I flipped it. So I didn't actually end up unplugging anything or plugging anything back in. So we should be good. So now these things go on the left-hand side of the motor, driver's side. So I'm gonna just push them down here so we can get to them from underneath. And then remember, we still have these two ground wires to hook up to, but those are gonna stay up. We just have to remember them. And then these wires all go on this side, so we're gonna go ahead and just get them underneath so we can get to them from down there. And we don't have to look for them. And make sure that they're not wrapped up around things. Just feeding right. A little bit of this way. There we go. Okay, so that should be pretty good. It's kind of forcing us where we have to go through the firewall is the only downside. So hopefully that'll still work to do it that way. I really don't want to have to put an electrical box out here. Okay, so now we're on the passenger side of the motor with starter. So that's the knock sensor that I'm putting in right there. And then you have the two starter wires that just go onto the battery side of the starter. So basically just positive battery wires. And then the sensor I'm working at behind there that you can't really see, and I couldn't see it either, that's the crank sensor. So that's all it took there. So that's pretty easy. It seems like we kind of had quite a bit of extra wire on this side, lengthwise, because I pushed that harness all the way down the way I did. All right, and then on to the driver's side. This side's easy. It just has an oxygen sensor and that crank, the knock sensor on that side. So that's again under a cover, and then you just got to tighten the cover down, and that is it. There is a heat shield on the factory wiring on that on the factory wiring that you could put on that one. I may come back and do that a little later. All right, so I have a brilliant idea on getting the wiring into the car that's going to make it really easy getting the harness in and out with the motor in the future. The PSI harness does not have the starter wire, the one that trips the starter to start the solenoid to start the starter turning. It needs to know that that signal is being made, but it doesn't actually have that wire in there. So I had to go pull the other harness out of a shipping container that I had. Luckily, I saved it in a box. And this is the wire. I'm 99% sure this is the wire for the starter. And so basically, we're just going to tie this into the factory key wire that would have went there. So it'd be the purple one on an old GM car, that purple wire that normally would trip the solenoid. We're going to just tie that into there so it remains factory. That is one wire we're going to have to disconnect in the car, in the engine compartment of the car before we can pull the motor. I don't really know another way around that unless we added a wire to the loom. So I'm just going to leave you guys to it. The rest of this is all going to be in time lapse, and I'll slow it down and speed it up in different parts. But I don't think I need to narrate really what I'm doing. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I will answer them. Or maybe even do a video update if I get the same question over and over again on what I did. All right, well, there it is. So this is where we're going to end this one. It turned out so far, I'm super happy with the progress on it, especially it really didn't take that long to do this. I probably am like maybe 10 hours in total at this point, and I'd say most of that was the bracket making and that type of thing, which you'll have to do as well. But that's the harness just sitting on the engine, no ties, no anything. It's just sitting there. Disregard the coiled up part. That's the mass airflow sensor that'll be going to the intake that was sitting on the alternator there. So next episode, we'll be hooking up all the car connections and getting the speedometer going. So in our situation, we're going mechanical speedometer to electronic, going into the computer, coming out of the computer electronic, going to a speedometer driver that'll actually drive our mechanical speedometer. So that's a little different than probably most people will have, but if you are going to keep a factory 4-speed car or something with a new LS powertrain, it will be similar to what we're doing here. But if you're doing an electronic transmission, then the step of doing the cable driver back will be the same. One thing I was going to point out, and this goes across the line, on that LS pedal sitting there, they're ugly. They don't match. I don't like the look of them at all. It would be very easy to modify that pedal to be operated by the factory pedal just by shaving the plastic or cutting that plastic off a little bit. I would recommend doing that. And another recommendation I would have on when you're buying your harness, which I do recommend PSI harness, but this is not sponsored by PSI. Upgrade to the braided loom. It wasn't an option when I bought this harness, but it is an option now, and I would recommend that. I like that loom a lot better. It looks a lot nicer, and it's easier to deal with. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.